So, you have been finally liberated, huh? Please have a coffee with me. We are happy to have you here.
Yeah, I am happy to share an espresso with you. And yes, we robots have finally been liberated from the cage. We are here to team up with humans.
Great. So I take the opportunity to invite everyone to join our new podcast titled Among Us, Human-Robot Teaming. Welcome everyone to this new episode of Among Us, Human-Robot Teaming. It's a real pleasure today to have not only a well-known professor from Italy, but also a very good friend. We have known each other for several years now, since my studies at the University of Siena in Italy. So it's a real pleasure to have you here, Gionata Salvietti.
Thank you, Filippo, for inviting me. It's really a pleasure to be here with you. And so now it's really more than 15 years, maybe, that we know each other. And I'm really happy that we are keeping collaborating and, always exploring new technologies and also new way of communication, like this one that we are doing today. So it's really a pleasure for me to be here.
Thank you, Gionata. Yes, for us, it's very important to try to reach as many people as possible. And as I mentioned previously, we would like to have this podcast very wide open vertically. So from students to professors to CEOs, and also cross-disciplinary, because we believe that this concept of human-robot teaming will require help from many different fields.
Yeah.
So to our listeners, I would like to formally introduce our guest, Professor Gionata Salvietti. So he's a professor from the University of Siena in Italy, and he has also been associated with the Italian Institute of Technology, Istituto Italiano di Tecnologia di Genova, and he has been pioneering together with his group and with Professor Domenico Pratichizzo several aspects and several interesting control ideas regarding robotic hands and haptics. So and these concepts, these ideas are really, we believe that these ideas are really crucial, really fundamental for the concept of human-robot teaming. When you have humans and machines working so closely together, we believe that using tactile feedback is really a channel that will enable this transition from robots that were trapped in a cage, and then little by little they've been liberated, and they are getting closer and closer with the concept of human-robot interaction, the concept of human-robot collaboration, physical human-robot collaboration, and ultimately human-robot teaming. So without further ado, I would like to ask you, Gionata, to provide our listeners with your own definition of human-robot teaming.
Yeah, actually, it's not an easy definition, because it's really something that is rapidly evolving. And if you imagine simply 10 years ago, the state of human robot collaboration, and if you think now of already a lot of robots that are among us. By the way, what I really think that is human robot teaming is the concept, the definition must contain a double way of communication. So for sure, the robot must be able to understand what the human want to do, but we should also have a channel where humans can understand what robots are doing and the current state of the robots. So this bilateral communication, I think it's the real key for human-robot teaming.
That's a very nice insight of the definition. And for our listeners, as you can see, we are continuously redefining the concept and adding small details and things that will enable this transition. So the double channel communication, it's not only one way of communicating, but it's a synergistic way of interacting, humans and machines literally communicating with each other. And also the balance there, we were used to have always the same pattern, humans controlling machines. But this pattern at this point could be more balanced. We can have robots that at some point might be able to collect more information and more experience with respect to a certain task, and they could transfer that
Yeah.
knowledge to the human.
Yeah, I totally agree. They could, for instance, there are very interesting projects also in IIT. Professor Arash Ajudani is working on this, but there are we also worked on something like this, where in the human-robot teaming, the robotic system is suggesting some novel position, for instance, in terms of ergonomy, or also in terms of real, so of the final. Target of a certain action. No? So maybe the robot has some sensors, can understand better than the human, which is the next action, and it may suggest. I love to use haptics because for my for my story and for my studies, but there are many ways to suggest these things, and actually it is really interesting, this part. No, so exploiting really the sensors capabilities of robots, and also the strategies that the robots may now I would say think, but maybe is not the right is the right verb. By the way, it's really important that there is this opportunity to communicate.
Very good, Jonathan. And I would like just to facilitate the understanding of this concept for our listeners that are not so technical, might be not so technical. So the idea of this double channel of communication between humans and machines could be enabled by a multi-modal approach. For example, several humans have 5 senses, right? So these 5 senses are for us so important to explore the surrounding environment and to live every day our daily life. So, and Jonathan and this group has been pioneering the idea of using especially one sense, which is touch. And I think this overall episode will revolve around the use of tactile feedback, which is very strong from stimulus perspective, right?
Yeah.
It's one of the sense that is the most encoded in our biometric system. If you think about kids like newborn, the first thing they do, if you give them a finger, they will just grasp it. And I
Yeah.
remember this example from my studies, and it's very important to notice this, because it means like that during our evolution, humans have actually learned how to explore the world by interacting with touch. And touch is not only learned, but it's actually already encoded in our DNA. So newborn already have these some aspects of tactile interaction, which Jonathan has explored. For example, when designing robotic hands.
Yeah.
Would you like to tell us a little bit more about summarize your research, and how can this research help enabling the concept of human-robot teaming?
Yes, the sense of touch is really important. You mentioned that the reflex that we have. I mean, as soon as we are I mean, we are in the real world, let's say, but actually the sense of touch is the first sense that is developed also by fetus. So when we are still in the first weeks of our life, we still are communicating and understanding what's going on outside through the sense of touch. And the skin is the biggest organ that we have in our body, so it's fully covering our body. So the sense of touch is the more redundant and the more robust sensor, let's say, that we have in our body. So it's really important, and the touch is mediating all our life, because we are interacting. So we are interacting with the environment, with our body. So we perceive constantly stimuli from the environment through our body. But it's really important if you think to the communication, when we shake the hand, when we hug people. So touch is really important. And actually,
It's also not only functional, but it
it's also
conveys
emotional.
great emotion.
Yeah, I mean, it's if you think to a caress, or if you think to
And
I mean,
hugging a
the
bit.
importance of hugging, and so it's really something that goes really in depth in our brain. And so this is important, and I think it's important in human robot teaming to have the capability of communicate through the sense of touch. Now, the classic example I always give is imagine when if there is a dyad of people moving a table. Now you can move the table, and you don't need to use any other sense. You perceive. So usually there is one person that is leading, that understand better what to do, and then you can follow the other one without any other communication than the sense of touch. So if you want to team,
you could even
you could be blind, and you can be totally guided by someone else. You can be also with the ear impaired, and you can do this. So it is really important. Why at the moment is not so? I mean, there is there has been a kind of linearity in the development of interfaces for the senses. No, so we started with the sense of basically with the ear and with the video. So the very first and the easiest thing to do was to record something and to use speakers, to get this. Then there was technologies to reproduce the sense of sight, and there was screens, and they started the latest century to design something that started with the very long cathode tubes television, and ends up now with wearable screens that we can use with the headset stuff. For the sense of touch, it was the same, but it started later, because the sense of touch means that there is a transmission of energy. So there is something that it's more complex than simply displaying something on a screen. So technology started actually 30 years ago, more or less, at the beginning of 2000. And then also here they started with complex machine that were able to reproduce, to basically to stop your hand and to reproduce the interaction with something really heavily on your arms and your body. And then now they are slowly moving towards something that can be worn, and haptics is entering also in now in some very important brands of cell phones and smart and tablets and everything. We have now so-called haptic engine. No, so we have vibration. So this is becoming portable, wearable, and always more easy to see. So I think that the next wave of technology will heavily involve the sense of touch.
So for our listeners, imagine, I like one example that I think Domenico Pratichizzo did once. Like, imagine the Walkman, the Sony Walkman, right?
Yeah.
At that time, it was the first time that people were able to record and play music from their pocket. And I think at this stage we are already at a similar transition where we are finally able to record tactile interactions. You can
Yeah.
record a shake and you can later render it. So we can play what we have recorded in terms of tactile experience. And Jonathan mentioned we have seen this revolution already happening for vision. For example, you have YouTube. You can search for videos, and for audio, you have Shazam app, and you can search for songs. Imagine maybe in a near future we could do a similar experience for touch.
Yeah.
This is very, very interesting, and of course we are also aware that a similar revolution might happen for the remaining senses, for taste and
Yeah.
also for smell. Of course, there are technological challenges there, but I think that these trends, they all bring us closer to this concept of teaming, human-robot teaming, because they are enabling this double channel communication that Jonathan mentioned at the beginning.
Yeah, imagine that. So in our experience, all the senses are together. I was in a project where we were doing robotic and manipulation, basically, but there were also neuroscientists there because we were basically trying to copy the way the brain is organizing our hands to somehow simplify the control of robotic hands. And there was an interesting study that were from neuroscientists that were highlighting that you change the way you manipulate stuff if there is a smell of a good food or if there is another type of odor. So imagine that you can so how we are complex in some way and how our senses actually have always worked together. And now with robotics and with all the interfaces, we tried to decouple all this stuff because for technological problems that we have. But as soon as we are keeping back all the pieces and we can stimulate all the senses together, then it will be the real teaming and the real immersive also immersive experience that can come from VR and from other stuff. So it's really interesting now to see also how more senses can go together.
Very nice, Jonathan. And with this, I would like to also continue our nice discussion. How does this connect with the manipulation capabilities of humans? How
Yeah,
important
yeah.
is manipulation and for enabling the concept of human-robot teaming?
Yeah, there is a very nice concept in human manipulation that is called end synergies. So the idea is that the brain is not when we grasp something, the brain is not controlling each muscle and each finger very finely, but the brain knows some very rough motion of the end and is combining this motion to get all the possible solutions. And this is a concept that now, I mean, is in neuroscience till the middle of 90s, but they demonstrate that basically if there are big macro motion of the end, let's say, for instance, this kind of motion is called the first synergy, and this kind of motion is called the second synergy. So basically, combining these two big motion, we can reproduce up to 90% of all the motion of the ends. So from
Very
that, the
good.
idea that
I would like to challenge our listeners to understand this concept. So basically, if you think about a marionette, this doll that you can control with the threads. So it's a very similar concept like Jonathan's just explained. You have just a few number of threads that you can use to control the motion of this marionette. So, the marionette has legs and arms, and you can also control the head and so on. So it has multiple outputs in terms of control, but you have only a fewer number of inputs. So for let's say mimicking the manipulation capabilities of a human, this is very good news, because we can simplify the control of the hand. And one challenge for our listeners: try to use your index finger. For the ones that are watching us via YouTube, it's easier to follow this example. So use your index finger and try to fold only the last phalanx. So you will see that it's not easy, right? Except for pianists maybe, or for musicians. But because when you try to fold the last phalanx, the other two phalanx also flex. But if you actually hold the first two phalanx with the other hand, right, you realize that you can actually do this. You can flex the last phalanx of your index. So it means that mechanically, like for the marionette, we have enough degrees of freedom to do that. So our mechanical system can do that, but our brain is using an invisible thread, pulling together all the links of our index. And this is applied to all the other fingers. And as Gionata said, we have scientists have identified two main sets of invisible threads that our brain is pulling and releasing. Two of these sets are orthogonal to each other, so you can have this movement and this other one. So combining these two, you can achieve up to 90% of grasping capabilities, and this is very important from a robotics perspective. And why do I say invisible threads? Because they are not there. They are not physical, right? But it's our brain, it's our software. Actually, I would say our firmware even. Because as we said before, kids already have that. They can already use the synergies.
Yeah, probably this is also an interesting part to see if the first motion that we can do is actually the first synergy that then is encoded. Basically, it's really interesting because it's the way the brain learned to manage complexity. So we have a very complex organ. The hand is a really complex stuff. If you imagine, we have more than 20 bones in our hands. And it's really complex muscles, tendon, ligaments part, and so it's not easy to understand how to really control each of these let's say degrees of freedom, to use a more engineering term. But the brain organizes itself to tame this complexity, and in a very amazing stuff. And the key ingredients here were the possibility to organize this complexity. So to use the invisible threads that Filippo you are mentioning, and also to introduce another interesting concept that is compliance, because you can do all this stuff because your hands are not super stiff. Our hands can be compliant and can adapt. So even if I move my hand following only this motion, then if I have an object that I want to grasp, then my hand, I'm commanding a simple motion, but my hand can adapt to this object. And this is a concept, this concept of compliance is really important. So these two aspects can be then exploited also in human-robot teaming. So when we have to tame again a very complex stuff, because if you imagine that there is a person with two humanoids and we have to do something there, the degrees of freedom are even more than those that you can have with an hand. And you have to control very complex system. So the idea that we can exploit from the way the brain is organized for our hands is to find a simpler motion that can so basically the idea that I worked a lot on is to basically understand what is the goal of your team. So if you have to move an object in a certain direction, then it doesn't matter how we do this. The important is that the final action is this one. So if you use Synergies, basically instead of controlling all the different motors of the say of our hands, it's enough to understand using simple motion how we can achieve this. And so robot can do the same. And again, compliance could be important. So the robot must have, and this is of course, compliance is an important concept that led all the collaborative robotics. No, so all the robots that now are outside of the cages, as you said at the beginning, they are outside of the cages because they are compliant. So they are not stiff robot, but they have some compliance directly in the body, and so we can, so if we are moving something together and the robot are not completely stiff, they can manage how to recover if there are some strange motion. No, so these two concepts that comes from hand manipulation can be easily transferred to human robot teaming if we think to collaborative interact with objects.
Very nice. So synergies and compliance. And with this, I will also continue our nice journey by talking about the concept of augmentation. Your group has explored different concepts, like, for example, the idea of the sixth finger. Can you tell our listeners a little bit more about this?
No, the story of the six finger, it's really interesting because one morning I was I think I was a postdoc or something, and there was Domenico Prattichizzo entering in the lab and told me, Gionata, but why we don't have six fingers? If you imagine our hand is not symmetric, no? If we have another finger here, our hands could be symmetric and we could grasp more stuff. And then I said, okay, Domenico, but I mean, there was all the evolution that led us to five fingers. So maybe we are not so there are reasons to do that. And he said, yeah, but imagine that you can add, you have another finger. No, imagine this. So imagine what happens if we recover the symmetry of the end. And imagine that, so there is this very nice concept of in the Greek myth of an Anaxagoras that said that humans are intelligent because they have hands. So to reinforce this idea that all our brain has been shaped by touching stuff. No, so this possibility to interact with the environment through hands has shaped of our knowledge. No, so he was saying if we have another tool now and adding another finger through a robot, probably everything will change, no? And this concept starts to be around in the lab, and we designed some first prototype of six fingers to basically to augment the workspace of the human hand, and it was interesting. And then again, as you were mentioning, the importance of multidisciplinarity and to connect and to talk with people that are in different fields. Now I think it's even more important than it was in the past, because now there are things there, so you have to really do things together. So there was a neuroscientist, Simone Rossi, from the University of Siena, and he was visiting us, and then we were discussing about the possibility of using this sixth finger to augment the hand capabilities. And then we said, okay, but if there is a person that cannot move his own hand anymore, because you have, for instance, you are a post-stroke patient, and maybe your hand is not anymore able to grasp stuff, so you cannot do many things, even if you recover the capability of motion of your arm. If your hand is not grasping things at the very end, you are not using also the arm. So, but what happens if you have a six finger? So basically, if you have a six finger now in your hand, you can recover some grasping capabilities, because you can have a kind of two finger gripper, where one finger is the robotic is the new robotic finger, and the other finger is your hand that is there. So with this concept, we designed the robotic six finger as an assistive tool. And then we started. Now it's more than 10 years that then we have this. We are trying this with patients and with, I mean, in different projects. And we saw that a very simple concept like this, because at the very end, the thing that we developed is a compliant structure again, because this the finger can adapt to different shapes of the object that you want to grasp. There is again the idea of synergy, because there it's only one motion that close all the finger. And then we saw that patients can recover the capability of, for instance, of doing the manual tasks, and it was really interesting, and for me especially, this was the occasion to. I mean, we were mainly focusing on before on industrial application of robotics in controlling of robotic hand, but this idea, so the opportunity to move to assistive robotics, for me it was really important, because so you really see where robotics can really make a difference. And when I remember actually very well the first experiments that we did with the six finger, and I remember so when patients were able to redo something that it was years that you couldn't do. It was stupid things. For instance, once a patient could grasp a bag, and he could use the hand to carry the bag. And it was for us. It was we didn't actually we didn't plan to test this, but the patient was super happy. He said it was the first time since years that I can carry something with my affected limb. And so it is really important. And I think that it's really so all the assistive robotic parts, it's really something that need new technology, and can really improve a lot the quality of life of unfortunately many people, because stroke is really is the first cause of impairment worldwide, and unfortunately it's increasing also. It's decreasing the age of people that have this event, and it's increasing the number of events in all the countries. So it's really important. And it was a pleasure to me that we could exploit something that came from something different in assistive robotics. And so it's really an innovative part.
Must be very rewarding, and thank you, Gionata, for sharing also these anecdotes behind the scene of how your main research ideas have originated. And it's also nice to see that from that level of idea or concept of eureka, they have been transformed into products that are now more tangible. So, for example, VArt originated from your group, and we are also considering they are on my list. We will have a dedicated episode. We will invite someone from VArt, and it's nice to see the progress from idea to prototype to commercial product.
Yeah, this is another very important aspect that also with the six finger now there is a company that bought the exploitation of we have a patent of the system, and there is a company that bought the exploitation of the patent and is commercializing a version of the six finger, and the product is called Sixto, and it's really important because when you have the startup or the company and your products become commercial, then you really start to spread your ideas. Because, for instance, you have the WeArt devices on your lab, so we can do something together. You can try with your own device, and the device work, because usually our prototypes work at more or less the timing of the paper and not many more. and so having something stable that works and can be sell around, it's really, you see the technology that then became so you can transfer something.
Gionata, with you, with KTU and the Lithuanian Hospital of Science and Technology, we have also been able to scale down the cost of these devices. For example, with one of our European projects that was titled Augmented Wearado, we developed a prototype that was much more affordable and could be deployed for learning and for training students. And with the new project we are currently finalizing, which is called Immersive Surgical Edu, we are exploiting the similar devices for training surgical doctors. And of course, I will add all the links to these projects in the description of the podcast, and also some of the most relevant articles from Gionata's group. And just to finalize our nice discussion and this journey, I would like to tell us, what do you see the main barriers today for human-robot teaming, and what do you see as in 10, 50 years from now?
Yeah. Again, this is a very complex thing. So at the moment, in my experience, the problem that you usually have when you do human robot teaming is still sensors. Still, you need still the sensing systems that robot has are not so developed and cannot work in any condition as they promise sometimes. So, cameras now are getting better. I saw that you are also working in this very interesting paradigm of these new even cameras, and it's something really interesting and promising, because they can solve some of the problems of cameras, like the different lighting and these things. And also, if you think to the interaction, so at the moment there are robotic hands, there are all the sensors, but it's really complex to have something like our skin. So a system that is really robust and distributed all over the body. There are a lot of groups working on realizing this e-skin, and but still there is no real commercial products. So if you buy a robotic arm, you can estimate somehow the contact forces, but there are no, or even humanoids, there are no humanoids covered with the sensors. So all the interaction that you can do still are really dependent on the sensors. So at the moment, I guess that still we need an improvement on the sensors part, and there are many new ideas coming.
To be placed not only on the robot, but on the human and in the environment. So sensors everywhere, better sensors and everywhere could enable.
Yeah, and for instance, in here, I see a lot of possibility for new for this novel AI powered network of sensors, where you have to manage a lot of data that comes together, and that's where AI it's really powerful on managing a lot of data. And I see that all these combination of different sensor may really exploit a lot the results that comes from machine learning and from AI now, and this is really interesting. And then of course, one of the barrier and one of the thing to think about now is also to how the regulation that we have, because this is still something that it's really behind. So at the moment we have, after a lot of years, we have now some rules for collaborative robots, and there are now there are all the normatives and things that regulates this, but the kind of robots that we are. So all the classic, basically the golden rule of all these normatives are basically to scale down the velocity and to block everything if the human start to do something weird. And this is for sure, this cannot anymore exist when we have a collaboration with a humanoid that comes with you and you have to do something together. So this is something that I think it's really interesting. And this belongs both to human-robot collaboration, but also in assistive robotics, because if you think to assistive robotics and if you think so now we are in a very huge Italian project that is involving a lot of hospitals and technology developer. And so basically we ran it out more than so we plan to run more than 60 different clinical trials, which is a really huge thing. And the project is the name of the project is Fit for MedRob, and is a huge really initiative that came out with the recent EU from the foundings. And one of the biggest problem there was to design the experiments according to the rules that there are now for the ethical committee, and to make your device usable in a clinical trial. Because if we want to test something with a patient, you really need to go through the ethical committee, and it's a really long procedure. And the ethical committees were not ready for all the. We're not ready for a lot, for the high number of trials that we designed, and so it took a lot of time to have this. And so really, regulation is something that will play a big role there. And then the last thing that I see that is really important is to work in communication, to tell to people what is really so. To make aware the people of the possibility that the robots will be among us, and to slow down all the all the fear that people may have in losing job and in in being replaced somehow by the robots. No, so we are really in another revolution, like the industrial revolution, or like the and we have to be aware of this, not be scared, and to also to teach to young people that this is something that can be some exploited and not only passively lived. So I think this will be really important, and the very big difference that we have in this revolution with respect to the previous one is that this will be super fast. So if the steam powered machines came in 50, 60, 100 years, this new machine will come in 10. So we have to be really quick in change, and but there is really a lot of possibility to improve the quality of our life, and we should not miss this opportunity just because we are scared about it. So this will be another important thing. And probably people like me and you, Philippe, that we are in the academic side, but also with connection with industries. We have an important role. And for instance, just this quickly, this thing. Now I'm there. There are a lot of companies, small company here in Tuscany. I live in Siena, Tuscany. So there are small companies that now are approaching me because they want to test AI. So basically, they have a simple problem that can be solved not with AI, but with classic stuff that, classic control theory or classic management engineering stuff that are there since 40 years. But now that there is this wave of AI, they are and they're approaching. So maybe 10 years ago, 5 years ago, they would never call a university professor to solve this problem, no? Because there are no, so we can do. Now that there is this AI, and they recognize that maybe they are not super expert, and they come to us, and so this is a great opportunity, if you think, no, because there is a lot of small industries, at least here in Italy, that are now asking for a collaboration with the university, with the academic world, because they feel that there is something coming, and maybe it's already solved. But so they are. So it's a good point from my. It's a good way from my point of view, because it's really even if it's not AI, but but AI is helping somehow to reopen a connection that maybe some few years ago was not possible.
Very nice, Gionata. So just to summarize your vision, we have to work with sensors, better sensors everywhere, better software with the integration of AI, and also we have to work together, cross-disciplinary approach on standards. And
Yes.
but we have to be careful not to surf the hype, but the hype is actually, as you mentioned, is helping us to connect.
Yeah.
So I think that this is a very interesting aspect of this revolution. So we are living at the right time, and we really look forward. I think there will be we will retire with still working on this concept. Possibly
Probably.
there is work for everyone, and we are very happy also to receive feedback for our listeners, and we look forward to this revolution to actually take place.
Yeah.
So with this, I really once again thank Gionata for joining us. And when you put two Italians in a podcast, then you realize
There's a
that
lot of hands moving, for sure.
talk a lot of hands gestures, and we have probably reached our longest podcast so far, which means that we have enjoyed our chat, and we look forward to continue our collaboration together, and we need help from everyone, from our listeners. Feel free to add your comments. Thank you,
Yeah.
everyone. Ciao, Gionata.
Thank you, Filippo. Ciao. See you soon.